Commission are proud partners of the Her Story series that was developed to share the stories of women in leadership positions at GVSU. For the students attending today's program, we are here to add value and connection to your academic experiences. Today's program is designed to help you connect what is learned in the classroom with an out-of-classroom experience. Specifically, we are focused on the LEAP learning outcomes of foundations and skills for lifelong learning, integrated learning, and critical thinking. The focus of today's program is to help you identify skills that can be used in building a successful personal and career path. The format for the Her Story is more casual, and we encourage, as you can see, and we encourage you to ask questions of Mary at the conclusion of her story. We also ask that you complete the program evaluation sheets before you leave today. You may leave it with one of the volunteers or on your chair. Where's my volunteer? She'll be right here, and we'll try to make your way up at the end. You can hand it to her or just leave it in the middle of the table. That's fine too. This is our final Her Story of the year. You can help us plan for next year by sharing names of women you think would have a great story to tell. So let us know through our Women's Commission or Women's Center email. We'd be happy. And we know we have binders of women here at successful. It's the second time I've used that joke. Yeah. But we have lots of successful women here. So if you know of somebody that hasn't been on a Her Story, we would love to hear from you. So now introducing our speaker. Today's speaker is Eileen Lyon, Associate Vice President for News and Information Services. Please join me.
Thank you very much for coming. I just heard it's one of the last times you can get an event in before the end of the semester, so I thought it was fun. No, it's funny because I've been laughing. I'm putting together notes on my life, and I'm sitting there saying, who needs notes on their own life? But the reason that I want to do it is not that I would forget my stories necessarily, but because I wanted for them to have value to you. I thought I'd have to have some kind of organization and messaging and things that I think I've learned as I've walked along the world for a few years. So that was my thinking about it. So the stories that I'm going to tell you, I'm going to start in childhood because my number one mentor was my mother. But you don't, sometimes when you're young, someone might give you a definition of yourself, whether that's your family, a teacher, a coach, anybody along the way. And if they're good, keep them. And if they're not so good, then just move on and don't get stuck on your own definitions of yourself. And then my joke is comfort zone. What's a comfort zone? I mean, do any of us really know? No, usually you have to push all the time. So, for instance, if you didn't really like public speaking, you came into this room, you'd be, wow, this is way out of my comfort zone. So, pretty much to be successful and get to the next level in your life, you're going to have to push on. And to be clear about whatever principles that guide you. And for me, what guides me are principles that probably guide a lot of you, which are faith and family, and that comes out for sure in the choices that I've made and the places that I've been where I hope to go. And another huge thing I think to be really happy in your life, to be satisfied, is to be grateful. And all along the way, you'll look back and think of the people who gave you opportunities. And I always say to myself, I'm grateful for all the people who ever opened a door for me, because we all need people to give us a chance. And so be sure to be grateful to the people who help you. And I said, for opportunities, which are the good things, I've also had a few challenges. And you have to be grateful for those, because it's sort of in the times that you're scared or nervous, things that are happening, that you might have the opportunity for the most growth. All right, there's Mom and Dad. So, Bill and Peggy Balsley, and it's right after the war. My dad was a widower with a child, and he just had one daughter, and his wife had died of diabetes. He meets my mother, whose fiance had died in World War II, over Italy in a plane, and he was only 21 years old. So they meet, they feel like they've had a little bit of sorrow in their life. They get together, and they quickly go on to have 8 more children. So there are only 8 of us there. There were 9 altogether. I'm the baby in the lap there. There used to be an old TV show called 8 is Enough, and I used to tease my little sister. Remember that show, 8 is Enough? Well, but we had 9. So I have 7 sisters and 1 brother. And the reason I bring that up is because I do think that being from a big family gives you a lot of experiences in different ways. It gives you a lot of things to fall back on in many ways. But the reason I picked my mother for this was she was amazing in her faith, and it wasn't that she would be standing out on a street corner. It was just something that was inside of her every day. And we were Catholics, and she raised 9 practicing Catholics. And I laugh say practicing because we're all trying to be good people, so we're still hanging in there. But she had the ability to do that. It permeated her every thought and every lesson all along the way. And I sometimes laugh when people say, you shouldn't talk about religion or politics, because that's pretty much all we talked about in my house was religion and politics, kind of the meaningful things. She was truly a lifelong learner, one of the most educated people just in terms of the books that she read and the things that she filled her mind with. So I admire that about her greatly. She obviously had a huge maternal instinct. We all went on to have pretty big families. I think she had 38 grandchildren at the time of her death, and she's got a lot more great-grandchildren coming in now, and she was amazingly strong. So for all of those reasons, she raised about 7 of us on her own. So I look at her and I think she embodied everything that I really do admire in a person. All right, so here's the clan. This was a number of years ago. We were at a family reunion in Kentucky. So the things that I think you learn in a family, but it might be a little bit different in a big family, you certainly have to learn to share, because you barely get anything that you could just, hang on to and not share. So I think those are very valuable things. Eventually you'll hear about my TV career, but I remember doing makeup with a bunch of other anchors in a bathroom, and some people would need this big space, and I'd be like, I just need a little corner down there in the bottom, I'll be fine. I think you do learn about trusting people, just because there are more people. There are a lot of personalities, so you don't just have one sibling to think about. There's a lot, and there's a lot of dynamics going on, and I personally see it as very positive. You just have people to fall back on. I know it's funny, there are days where I need someone to talk to, and I just go down the Rolodex of my sisters. Who's around, nobody's there, I need somebody. And the story that I relate to later on that involved one of my children, boy did I need my family and sisters then. So I think it's really important to be close to family, and get that support, whatever you have. And some people don't have as big of families or as close as families, then I think you make your own. You make your own close friends, and you find the people who treat you like family. All right, well, I'm skipping ahead. I shouldn't go there just yet. When we were, I'll go through quickly, but there are some lessons that I learned, and I think what I'm trying to do is show that some early definitions of myself, either that I had of myself or just that my history was working out, just didn't hold true, thankfully. So when I was about 12, my mom moved the last 4 of us to Atlanta from Chicago. So I went from a Catholic school up north to a public school down south. I went from a place where everybody knew my family and to a place where nobody did, and it was really different. And I walked into school the first day in 7th grade, and I thought there was a girl who was a teacher, because she had on a pantsuit and makeup, and I was used to a uniform with knee socks and a pencil case, and they were all so sophisticated, and she was a student. So it was kind of a culture shock. Number one, the north to the south, Catholic school to kind of the Bible Belt Baptist South. There was some prejudice that I encountered about being a Catholic and being from the north. So, I grew to love it down there. My best friend from high school and college are really important to me, and they're Southerners. So it wasn't that it stayed or anything, but it was kind of a shock. So this is a pivotal point, because when I say that I lost my footing for about a year, I really didn't know what I was supposed to do. So that was, and 8th grade was in high school, which I wasn't prepared for either. So there I am, 8th grade, didn't know anybody, and I'm going to high school. So a little bit bounced around, average grades. And for those who know me, this will shock you, I used to get in trouble for talking. I was sent to the office for talking. I didn't do anything terrible, but I just, thought school was the place where you went to go see your friends. It seemed fun, it was social and very good. So after all that, the lesson that I take from this period of time is maybe when you're knocked a little bit, certainly I was knocked a little bit moving and changing and, leaving the big kids and all that, who were grown. They were just grown, so they were out on their own lives. Is when you kind of take stock and say, okay, what am I going to do? So in 9th grade, I did go out for basketball. So we're getting into my basketball years, which were
the best time for me in high school was basketball. So ninth grade, I was still kind of a little timid. I wasn't really sure how I was going to, was I really going to try that hard? Because that would, I'd have to commit or something, or maybe it was a little embarrassing. I'm not sure. So that was ninth grade. Then by the end of ninth grade, everything started to change, truly. I started blocking a few shots and grabbing a few balls out of kids' hands. And I started defining myself as a player. I could do this. So 10th grade, I ended up being captain of JV. I ended up being captain of varsity. And it changed my life. Just that whole element. Again, probably that family element, that teamwork element. I really think a lot about what it means to be part of a team. And I think, how I started to change at that time, I think, was just having a little bit of success and deciding that I like to achieve. I like to achieve more than I like to be chatty and social in the back and get sent to the office, which, I'm not saying I was a huge troublemaker, just a little one, but it was just an identification change in my own head about who was I. Well, I liked being this leader and I liked winning. And our senior year, we went on and I put these pictures up here. Just those of you who play basketball, I put up the one on the left just because I love that, because it's textbook blocking out. I'm absolutely sitting on that girl. She's not going to get that rebound. So I like that one. And the one on the right I like because we were in, I'm the one who looks like I'm going to throw up right there. I am bleeding into my white sock. I look sick, and we're in our double overtime. And there aren't many games I remember. You talk to some people, they can tell you the whole thing for the whole quarters. I can't, but I do remember that game. And this picture was in the student newspaper. But we were in double overtime, and we end up winning. But the reason I like it is because, it just shows, I'm sweating, I'm bleeding, and I think people who know me and they only saw me on TV, people get ideas about who you are and what you are, and it's not necessarily true. This, to me, shows more of who I am to me, which is someone who will kill myself to get the ball and make sure that you don't, and, we're going to go on. And so we were undefeated this year, and until we went to state, and then I have pictures of me. There's a girl like this, and I'm up to her elbow, and I'm guarding her, and believe me, we got creamed. But I wanted to say that, in sharing some of these things, and, I ended up, I said I was captain. I ended up getting some trophies in high school, and I'm going to share some different successes as I went on to college in my career. But the reason I do that is not to, in any way, to sound boastful or hear all my stuff. It's to tell you that anything could have gone either which way. And I took each little piece, and I'm so grateful for every move I made that moved me into the place of achieving a little bit more and not stopping and not being defined. And I'll tell you, because what happened in high school was I'm trying to decide if I need to move here for another shot of something, but I don't see it. When I was a senior, I almost didn't take the SAT. They never mentioned it. I was in the hall, and I'm like, wow. And that's what we took in Georgia, was the SAT. Shouldn't I take that? I went to my counselor. Shouldn't I take that? Well, they probably had pegged me. I started making honor roll in about 10th grade. But my 8th and 9th grade grades were probably extremely average, and they just didn't peg me. Most people from my high school went to college, but they absolutely had no one talking to me about it. And I knew that if I went to college, it had to come out of my own pocket. I paid for my entire college. So I was lackadaisical about it and didn't do it. But anyway, I remember my mother saying to my counselor, she's a late bloomer. So I always laugh about that. I was a late bloomer. So I did take the SAT, but I took a year off from high school and college. I worked full time, and I saved every dime. And I thank God all the time that I didn't say, oh, this is so fun making some money. I'm going to get cute clothes. I'm going to get an apartment. I'm going to get a car. I didn't. I was like crazy saving. And so I took that year off, and I decided to go back to college. And I can't even really tell you if I always knew I would go back or if I feel like it was divine intervention, because it changed my whole life. So, and you're already here, so you already know how important education is to your life. So yeah, I typed my way through college is the way I put it. I typed for a year at an insurance company, and I went back there every summer and every vacation break to do it. So here are the college years, and the mentors I had in college are very clear to me. I took that year off. I started at Georgia State, which is downtown Atlanta, I had no idea what I wanted to do, so I picked being a PE major. Hey, I love basketball, I played it, I'll be a PE major. Well, my first year, I had a writing professor who just loved my writing and would read it out loud. So I really credit her. That's the first inkling of like, okay, I like this, I could be a writer. So I decided to transfer to the University of Georgia, which had a great journalism program. And all of a sudden I had a different spring in my step about who I was and what I was and where I was going, and I started making straight A's in college. So, you know, my joke is if you told my high school teachers and counselors that I was going to, I mean, some of this is just to show you, I mean, I did graduate #1 in my class at Georgia. Again, I tell you that not to say that I was so great, but to say, look what can happen when you just keep putting one foot in front of the other one and decide that achieving is who you want to be. And you just keep trying really hard and putting yourself in the good spots to get help or to take advantage of opportunities. So that was a real pivotal time for me. I ended up getting an internship at Georgia Public Television, and how I got into television at all was, so I get this woman who tells me you're a good writer. I transfer to Georgia, I get in journalism, but I have no idea what I'm going to do. You could go into print, you could go into production, you could go into magazines, whatever it was. And my first news writing professor, who was actually my advisor, said, come on, we're going to go see the TV studios. So he dragged me down over there, showed me the studios, and he said, this is what you're doing. So I'm grateful to him. He also got me the internship with Georgia Public Television, or at least got me the audition to do that. We covered the legislature at Georgia. So there I was, you know, a kid. If I look back on those tapes, it makes me laugh. But, you know, you got to start somewhere. So I look at those people and I think, how pivotal is that? I could have really, truly been a typist at an insurance company, and who knows, you know what, and it's a perfectly great work, but I was able to have so many opportunities just by the fact that I pushed myself a little bit. So I'm very grateful to all those people in my college years who saw something in me that maybe I didn't see in myself. So that's why, and I also have that, the reason why I had the thing about what's a comfort zone, because I really believe that at every stage I had to push myself out of my comfort zone, and probably still do, or we wouldn't be growing. So my joke was, when I was like 18, I didn't want to call the dentist. You know, that was way, make my own hair appointment. I mean, all that was just so, really, Mom, could you do that, you know? And obviously within just a few years, my first job was in Lafayette, Indiana. Let's see what we got here. I'm going backwards, sorry. I started in Lafayette, Indiana, and you know, suddenly you're calling CEOs of major corporations. You're with the governor one day, you might be with a senator, and so you go from like, oh, I really don't know if I want to call or do that, to all of a sudden, okay, here's your story, go run over there, start calling people, and then you know, you're walking into these places and you're just forced, and you have to do it. So if you sit here now and you think, oh man, how does that person ever get to there? You just get there by picking up the phone, by taking that next step, by asking somebody maybe quietly, you know, how do I do this? Because this makes me a little bit nervous. And somebody will help you. And so you just, that's the way you do it. And a lot of you may work here on campus and people have been kind enough to show you the way. And that's the way it's done all along your whole life. You know, whether it's you're 30 and you need some help, 40, 50, whatever, however, where you are in your career. There's not one of us here. President Haas, I'm so glad you joined us here today, but you know, there are times where he needs advisors, certainly. Coaches in here need advisors. Everybody needs advisors. We all don't have the facts in our own head, and I think when you're young, you think everybody must have some big secret going on out there that I just don't know about, because look how great they're doing. Well, they did it just like you, one step at a time, and asking people for help and favors. So anyway, I went to Lafayette, Indiana for a short period of time. Then I went to, I actually had a little stint in there doing a show called Ann Arbor Freeform in Ann Arbor, which was a little talk show. That's just a little aberration of my news career. And then I went to the ABC affiliate in Toledo, and then I came to Grand Rapids in 1985 to work for Channel 13. And I had two great mentors that I met at 13. One was Jack Hogan, who was the news director, and he hired me, which again, I'm so grateful to him. What did he, you know, see in me that he could have hired 1 million people? It's very hard to get a job in television, and he could hire anybody. And so again, humbled, grateful that somebody sees something in you and they vote for you. So that was great. And he asked me to give him 2 years. I gave 12 to Channel 13. So it was a great place. I love West Michigan for sure. And then after that, when I say that, you know, priorities are family, I made a lot of decisions when I was in TV to accommodate having children. I have 4 children. So I went part-time, and I asked for different shows and anchoring opportunities just to accommodate being part-time so I could raise my kids and spend enough time with them. No matter what decision I made at that time, for family reasons, ended up being better for my career. How funny is that? Because one of the things I did after I had my third, I couldn't figure out, I had 3 in less than 3.5 years. I couldn't literally, I'll just say this in mixed crowd, I couldn't figure out how I was going to nurse that kid, do the noon show, do that, and then do the 5:30 newscast. So I literally was like, okay, I need some kind of change. So they let me give up the noon show, and I started something on 13 called 13 on Your Side, which is a slogan they still use today, and it became like, it was a consumer, supposed to be consumer, it became investigative, and now it's kind of back to consumer. But when you laugh about that, it's literally, and I won an AP award, I won 2 during that time, and I was working part-time, and I really did it just so that I could have a life where I could be around my kids. So I always think that's kind of ironic. But in May, Channel 13 invited us back, a bunch of old anchors, should I say old or former anchors, to do 2 nights of newscasts, which I was really laughing. I thought we would be able to go on the set and just kind of yuck it up, but they really made us work. We had to anchor the newscast. But they put together a little report on kind of where we are now. So this kind of takes you can see some wacky hair days, and this is pretty short, but it takes me up to my time at Grand Valley. I think. She's frozen in time. All right, Nate, I might need you. I still have teammates.
Once again, tonight we are welcoming back some of our former anchors of Museum 13, and Peter Ross is here now with more on one of them.
Julia, Mary Eileen Lyon spent the years 1995 to 1997 here at WZZM TV. I worked closely with Mary Eileen for those 12 years.
Peter Ross and Mary Eileen Lyon team up.
We were a team working together, anchoring newscasts on the weekends,
The 5:30 edition.
and later during the week.
I anchored a lot of years with Peter Ross. We had a lot of fun.
In a job that can be serious one moment
And even though the water levels in area creeks and storm drains continues to be high,
and silly the next.
I'm amazed at how others view this as merely an inconvenience.
Mary Eileen established herself as a consumer reporter.
News veteran Mary Eileen Lyon handles questions from viewers on a wide range of consumer issues, then investigates the matter.
we started 13 on Your Side.
A station focus that remains strong to this day.
I've been able to take all of those skills that I had in television and take them on the road to Grand Valley State University.
No, I like the music that we picked up.
For the past 10 years, Mary Eileen has run GVSU's News and Information Service.
So what are we doing?
She still writes, edits, and produces on a daily basis.
People do ask me if I miss being on the news, and I don't miss it, but I love doing it. I'm very happy with where I am now, but I am so grateful for the 22 years I did television news, and 12 of them were at ZZM, and they were great years.
And Mary Eileen is here again tonight, as are 3 other former anchors.
And how long have you been here, Peter?
25 years.
Okay, so see, there you have it. With us on WZZM 13 News Next.
Yeah, they made us put goofy gold blazers. It was really fun. Okay.
The aforementioned 4 children. Oh, let me see where I am. Getting back to just a brief transition to Grand Valley. So Vice President Mac McLogan is the one who hired me out of television. He said to me, you're going to be amazed at how well your skills transfer. And at the time I'm like, wow, all I've ever done is, good evening everyone, how are you? And covered stories. I was a little uncertain myself, but he voted for me. So I'm very grateful to Matt, giving me great opportunities. I always say, I've heard it said, there are a lot of smart people in this world. We don't need all the smart people, we need good people. Well, at Grand Valley, I think we have smart and good people. So that's what I have found here, and I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I've been given here. In terms of, I think women get great opportunities here. We have a lot of women on the senior management team. We certainly have a lot of women running departments and units. And in its finest day, I say, you know, working at Grand Valley is like being an entrepreneur on the university's dime, in the sense that there's a lot of freedom to be creative, do the projects that you want to do. This one? Got it? Is that it? Is it this one? Got it? Okay. So, you know, you get to do a lot of projects. You get to have a lot of creative freedom. I absolutely think that sense of teamwork came back to me certainly here at Grand Valley. I have a great team in NIS, and I think most of them are here today. You know, we're able to do great work together, and I do want to give a shout out to Bill Cuppy, who I do the videos with here, and I think he was in a shot in the Channel 13 package where we were putting together. We do like the commencement videos, convocation, and different things like that. So he and I work closely together. Again, it's a team, and I'm very grateful to all of the people in NIS and Bill Cuppy as well, and all the people above me, because it is a great place to work. And I couldn't have predicted 15 years ago that I would be at Grand Valley State University. I hadn't thought about it. One of the mentors I had during TV was a guy named Dick Appleton, who has since died, but he was the one. People ask me sometimes, why did you get out of television? Well, he told me that it was getting to be a really tricky business. It was like a bad business where it wasn't going to make the money that it did. And as you've seen, media has changed a lot. Newspapers don't print every day. TV stations are way preoccupied with the web and not so much with what's on the air. Everybody's had to reduce their staff. It doesn't mean that it isn't a fine profession if you're going to go into that. It just means that it was changing rapidly, and they couldn't continue the way that they were. So by the time any of you might be entering it, it's starting to stabilize a little bit, and you'll be in on that ground floor. They talk about those multifaceted journalists. You learn everything. You learn how to shoot. You learn how to put up on the web. All of those things. You'll be ready when you do it. But he was kind of saying to me it was not going to continue as it was. So when I wanted to get out of television, I mean, really, divine intervention again, just somehow this job came in front of me, and it's been perfect. So I'm going to get into sort of the personal part of the story, and I do want to leave time for questions, because there certainly may be things that you're interested in that I'm flying by or something. But all right, here are the kids, and some of you may know. My oldest is Natalie Cleary, and she was student body president last year. She's doing Teach for America this year. Next to that's Brenna up in the corner. She's in MSU Honors College, going to graduate a year early. Go for it this year. Connor's a freshman here at Grand Valley. And then that little one that our friends laughed at this picture and said it looked like we photoshopped her in, came 7 years later, and her name is Tara. So I think that one of the things that I want to talk about is something where when a doctor told me what was going on with Tara at one point, he said, because there's a story there, but he looked at me and he said, I just changed your life. And it was very true. Something that happens with her, and then I'm going to talk about, changed her life, changed our life, changed everybody's life. And I say if I had just had the two girls, I don't think I'd be nearly as empathetic or compassionate about a lot of things, because they were completely normal pregnancies. Everything was great. Connor, I had something called placenta previa, and you can hemorrhage in any minute. Eventually I did. I had 21 days in the hospital, and I had to have him by C-section, and I was so mad that I had to have a C-section. I was praying for all this time that it's possible that the placenta can move and you don't have to have a C-section. And so I was praying. My mom finally looked at me and said, Eileen, the important thing is that the baby's healthy. But I was so preoccupied with the fact that I did not want to have to sit there and have surgery and a C-section. And it's absurd when I look back on it. And I'm telling you that for a reason, because thank God we all grow, because I feel immature telling you that story, because I was just furious. Well, so of course we make it to the end with him. They do an amnio and say he's good to come out. We're going for it. And then he comes out. He could breathe for a little while, and then he couldn't breathe. And then he was in neonatal unit for 10 days. And you kind of get knocked off your feet again, and you say, wow, yes, it was important that the baby's healthy, and how I had him was not as important. So after him, you know, that was kind of a shell-shocking experience. He's perfectly fine. He has no repercussions from what happened to him. But then I get pregnant with number 4, and and I was working at Channel 3 at the time. About 30 weeks, they say your baby's too small. 98% of babies at this stage are bigger than your baby. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, nobody knows. The doctors can tell you enough to scare you sometimes, but they can't tell you what's really going on. So I had been on full bed rest with Connor in the hospital. With Tara, I had to just go on rest. So I had to stop working, stay home, rest. So she ends up being born. I got induced, so I didn't have to have another C-section. But what I learned during that time, and the reason I brought up what I prayed for during the 3rd one and the 4th one, was while I prayed so hard with Connor that I could have my will, that I wouldn't have to have that surgery, that, you know, everything would just go perfectly and I wouldn't have to do that. With number 4, when I had to lay there and think, I have no idea what's going on with this baby, I just prayed, you know, please help me be able to deal with whatever is coming my way. And more importantly, please help me know, God, that you are walking with me. You promised you would walk, and I want to know that that's what I wanted to pray for. So in my mind, when I look at those 2 situations, again, I look at the change. You know, what was that? I was, you know, it's a 7-year change, but it went from kind of being that immature, thinking I could control everything, to all of a sudden having this humility about what we don't control and what is important in life. So here I was facing this. So they induced me, I have her, she comes out, she was smaller than a sack of flour, but she was perfectly healthy. Breathed great, no neonatal, went right home. But there was always this naggy feeling, why was she so small? You know, she was just a little tiny thing. And so after that, it kind of flips, because everything was pretty normal until she was 7 years old. And this goes to Grand Valley. I was actually at pre-board committee meetings. So our board of trustees are here. It's kind of a big day, big meetings, and I get a call from her doctor, and they say her blood counts are off. She just got a blood test because she's on growth hormone because she was little. She was not sick, nothing was wrong, not checking really for anything, and they call me and say her blood counts are off. Okay, you know, all right, I'll come in after, you know, school or whatever. So I hang up with them. I whisper to Matt McLogan, something's wrong with Tara's blood count. So we're both just kind of sitting there. So we get through that, and then the nurse calls me back and she said, don't wait until after school. So I'm sitting, you know, so I go, I'm trying to get through, the board meeting starts at 11. So I sit down for the board meeting, and all of a sudden I just start to get sick. I'm thinking, because at first I thought, okay, I'll get it right after the meeting, which will be over at noon. And then I just thought, no, I can't. So I just bolted out of the meeting, went back. Where's Sherry? Because Sherry said, are you okay? I walked in there and I said, no. I'm sure I looked ashen. And so I said, I'm not okay. So I got Tara. I had to go drive to her school to get her. And I was calling every sister in my Rolodex. Please pray, 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 pray. You know, I mean, something's wrong, something's wrong. And I knew just in my heart that something was wrong. I always had that naggy feeling, why was she small? It's got to have a definition somewhere. Why didn't she catch up? So anyway, this just starts this horrendous roller coaster. But by the next day, she had to have a bone marrow biopsy. And she has a rare disease called Fanconi anemia. And she was never sick to our eyeballs, but I had to take her to the University of Minnesota Children's Hospital for a bone marrow transplant within the year. Some people know they have this disease and it goes on for years and years and years waiting to transplant. She quickly failed. Her counts failed. She was never sick, honestly. And usually if you have crummy platelets, like you might know this in your grandparents or older people who are on blood thinners, if you touch them, they bruise, right? And usually these kids are all bruisey, and she was nothing. It was the oddest thing you've ever seen, to have to just take your kid and just turn her over to somebody where they're just going to kill all the cells in her body with chemo. And fortunately, and this was another huge blessing, her sister Brenna was her, oh, they're my grown-up children. You see them there? So Tara looks perfectly healthy. That's 3 years post-transplant right there. And Brenna was her donor. So we moved to these people, who are now blood sisters. So I wanted to, I had to go to the University of Minnesota. We were in the hospital. She did miraculously well. But even still, it's a pretty tough experience. And so I kept a blog called Caring Bridge. And some people here followed it closely. Okay, Bernadine, it's not clicking on it. I need technical support. I can see it coming up. Well, anyway, I'm going to pull up just so you can see some of the pictures. You know, it's pretty hard to watch your beautiful, thank you. I'm going to get to the pictures. And I'm going to have my teammate, Dottie Barnes, is going to read some stuff that I wrote at the time, because I feel like I'd be bawling my head off if I tried to do this myself. Sorry, but it was a pretty tough time. Here's her, okay, I don't want you there. Sorry, this is always the fun part of the program. I want to show you just when she looked kind of sick. Here's in the hospital shots. They dye their hair before they shave it off, and Dottie's going to read you about that. But, you know, if you look here, she's almost unrecognizable. You know, they blowed him up with steroids. She lost her hair. She couldn't breathe, but her counts came in really well from her sister, and you don't even get to go out of your room until your blood counts start coming back to the point where you could fight off some infections. So we were getting to walk outside in the hallways at this point, and that's why she has her mask on. But all right, Dottie's going to read some of the things.
All right, we'll start if this is July 23rd, 2009. Another impressive day where Tara's holding her own with chemo. Her appetite's pretty